Yesterday I was presenting an AI in education seminar workshop, and there was a couple of key takeaways from that seminar, and I just wanted to reflect on them here today. So firstly, we were looking at unpacking the next wave of AI in education. Now, there's lots of talk these days about moving from regular AI to AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which is near on equivalent of human intelligence. Now, we're not there yet, but big businesses such as ChatGPT and OpenAI are talking more and more about this concept. And it was interesting that the quote from Jensen, CEO of NVIDIA, was saying that AI is not going to take your job. Somebody using AI will take your job. So we focused on spending a bit of time unpacking the minimum viable toolkit for AI. And what that mean was focus and fail fast. Pick one thing and then focus on it and then fail as many times as you can to see what's working. But to break that down even further, we use the steps for success mastery cycle, which is begin with end in mind. What do you want to focus on? That is the end goal. What is the outcome you're aiming for? Then we looked at really success leaves clues, looking at what's already working out there, and then going into that final step, which is systematize the process, making sure we can just put it in a framework, put it in a system, and just go around that learning loop multiple times. Now, it was interesting, the conversations about usage of AI with students, and it was curious. I questioned and I interviewed my Year 10 technology timber class, and I asked, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most and 1 being none, how many of you are actually using AI on a daily basis? A majority of the students went a 3 to a 4. Not a single person was none. They were all using it daily. And it could have been from the most simple thing for learning to just helping them out in Google search options. Now, it was really interesting. I asked them, well, what are you really just trying to do? And they're like, oh, well, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to fast track like my ability to search something up. And it was super curious because our interpretation from educators is slightly different to that. There's always this stigma about, yes, students are using it to cheat. But the more you question them, the more they've got their own disposition to learn, and they've got their own ability to grow, and there is intention behind what we do and what we don't. So it was very, very interesting conversation, and we showcased a few different AIs just to give context of what we can do in this space. And ultimately, they walked away with having a goal, having a framework, and implementing it. It was a huge success. We had around about 9 people in this sort of masterclass, and then next week we're going to focus in on rethinking assessment design for in this era that we're going in for AI, because realistically we can't be doing the same things we did the last 10 years. We need to adjust. And some really cool use cases were coming out. One of the teachers is getting the students to create their own chatbot and turn it into a historical figure, and they're assessing their ability to do that rather than their knowledge of the historical figure. They're assessing their ability to create the historical figure using AI. And that's where the split is coming. It's like, are we assessing their ability to use and execute on this software or this technology, or are we assessing their knowledge of this specific concept? And that's what we're going to discuss next week. But really, really interesting takeaways from those conversations. So it is just becoming more and more apparent that you don't necessarily need to be the expert in the room. You just need to be in the room to begin with. And having that opportunity, it was interesting noticing that I did that everyone was established in their teaching career. Everyone had probably been 15 plus years. There was no sort of young guns up and coming in this workshop. They were all curious, and they were all from different areas of education, and they're all just wanting to learn and discuss and figure out what's actually working and what can they implement. Because I remember from a mentor once said that if you are in education and you've ever felt like you know it all, well, you're in the wrong job. You need to keep growing. You need to keep learning, because things keep changing, and we need to stay at least one step ahead of our students or work alongside them. And that's where the age-old sort of saying, don't be the sage on the stage and deliver the knowledge, be the guide on the side, And that is where we're moving from this scarcity of knowledge, where you go through a degree, you spend 20 years invested in this concept or this knowledge that you are learning so you can then become the expert. But arguably these days, knowledge is so easy to acquire because you can use certain softwares and AIs to actually help you do that, that it's becoming less about scarcity of knowledge. So if you think like a doctor, they go through, 6 years plus of medical school. They can diagnose all these problems. I was looking at I think it was a radiologist that posted on TikTok the other day, and they were basically saying, I spent 20 years learning how to decipher this scan of lungs to identify this certain disease. And then they said, well, here's AI and it's just done it in seconds. So they were just saying, jokingly, but not really, saying, well, now I'm going to go and apply for a job at McDonald's. But ultimately, there still needs to be experts and you still need to guide, because we're now going to be working alongside AI to make our jobs a lot easier, and it just requires us to think a different way. So just some curious concepts that we always need to keep learning and keep looking at what are we doing and how are we doing it. And it's an exciting opportunity to figure out what's next. So a couple of just simple takeaways, focus and fail fast. We fail, and that's where we get the most amount of growth. When something doesn't go our way, we actually rise to the occasion to actually become better at what we're doing. We are no longer going to be, the holder of all things knowledge. Knowledge can be accessed anywhere, anytime. If you've got a little bit of access to technology, it's now, how do we use that? How do we actually enhance our own learning and how enhance our own growth using that technology? And then focusing on one single piece of AI to just experiment and to try and then innovate with. Because at the end of the day, if we can do those things, we will stay ahead of the game and we can actually continue playing, because the idea of education is to graduate, but we need to graduate into the next thing. So this is our ability to now kick out of the cruise mode and then level up into that next step for us. So if this has resonated with you at all, or you're interested in hearing about the course or the workshop I did, I'll create a video and you can reach out on LinkedIn or you can reach out on Instagram, and I will see you in the next one. Remember, effort equals results.